The Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast. It's episode 52 of the podcast today, back again for a match reaction episode following our 3-2 win back at the Hawthorns against Luton Town. Today's episode sees us welcome a brand new face to the show. We're welcoming Callum on. Callum, how are you doing? Welcome to the show, mate.
Not too bad, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm not too bad either, mate. So we've got you on today to talk a bit about the Luton game. Obviously, we'll get into how you started supporting the Albion in a second. But before we get into the episode, guys, if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Obviously, if you're on YouTube, be sure to drop a subscription, or you're on your podcast provider. A follow, a subscription really does help us. So, Callum, back to you. So firstly, how did you get into supporting the Albion? And what sort of are your favourite memories of supporting the club so far?
So getting to the Albion, it was actually from my dad. So he's been an Albion supporter all his life. He used to live about 2 minutes away from the ground. So essentially, I don't actually remember my first game. All I remember was being little, going to the Albion. It's weird because like people usually say, "Oh, I remember my first game," or "I remember a certain result." But for me, it was just going to the game. And I remember having a season ticket. And before we used to go to, do you know Divine, the pub?
Yeah.
Go there. Yeah,
one with the curries.
Yeah, oh mate, we'll go into that another time, but yeah, going there for like the pre-match, and you used to have the away fans who weren't actually that bad. And then you had the walk past the motorway when it's like absolutely rammed, and you had like 10 minutes to cross over the motorway.
Yeah.
And then it's just I don't actually remember my first ever Albion game, but the earliest one I remember was the Southampton one when we went up and Chris Brunt scored with his left foot. I think that's the earliest memory I ever have of the Albion. But, you know, since then we've had a semi-final FA Cup loss. We've had a playoff final loss. I remember being young and I was sitting at the very top and I was like crying my eyes out because we lost. But, yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster over the years. But, mate, you wouldn't change it for a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of Albion fans are sort of in the same boat. You see all your friends supporting, like, you know, they perhaps don't have a father who supported, the club, the local club, and they go, right, I'm going to support Man United, and then all of a sudden they get all the trophies, and then we're sort of sat here going, yeah, West Brom, fantastic. Yeah. But do you have like a favourite season that you've seen at the club? Obviously, you've seen a few since your first earliest memory. What would you say is your favourite one?
Favourite one, it's tough because you've got the ones in the Premier League where you finish 8th and you finish 10th, and that was some good football because you remember like the 5-5 of United, and we've had like 2-0 away to Liverpool, Lukaku. I'd probably say on paper that was our best squad, and probably I wouldn't say my favourite season in terms of because we only finished 8th, we didn't win anything. But I think when you look back now, like Odell, Shane Long, Lukaku, Jakob, and you can go on and on and on, and it's just like, you look back at that team and you're like, I would do anything to have that team back. Like, and compared to now, and it's like, I'd probably say the one we finished. I think it was 8. Was it 8 from the Steve Clark when we had?
Yeah, that was the Lukaku season when we finished.
Lukaku season, yeah, when we finished 8th, and I thought a bit more. I thought sign Lukaku, be an investment, we'll be in Europa League.
Yeah,
but then signing Nietzsche being Sessegnon, so
bit of a change in recruitment. It did feel like we were really starting to build something then, but obviously now we are trying to build something. Got a new head coach in charge with Valerian Ismail. Obviously going into this season, obviously we're only 2 games in, but what were your thoughts sort of going into that first game and the new season?
A bit worried because I think we was linked with David Wagner, and I was a bit. At first, I was a bit, I don't want him. But then I think, like, when you look at his football and the way that he's set up, it was like, it's not too much compared to last season when we left Sam Allardyce sort of being organised and playing, solid football. And then when he said we've paid £2 million for Ismail, I remember seeing Barnsley last year. I didn't actually watch them much, but I saw the playoffs and I thought, they've got about 10 players in the opposition half. I could not imagine us pushing a high line with Kyle Bartley and I remember we'd done it with Pepe Mel and with Diego Lugano in the back, and that was an absolute disaster. I don't know how we started that season, but that was an absolute disaster. So to then go to Ismail, and I'm actually happy because it's a 4-year deal, but I know what we like because I feel if we go up this season, and he doesn't get the results next season, he's just going to get snapped. And obviously, he's got a 4-year deal, so there's going to be a bigger payout. And then it's just a concern of who do we go for then? Because then we've gone through Pulis, Allardyce, Pardew. The only one left I could think of is Mark Hughes.
Yeah, I think we're running out of them, aren't we?
It's a matter of time before it comes. Well, I really hope it works out. I really do hope, because his football's refreshing. It's something completely different. I'm not sold on the three at the back yet, purely because the last time we done it with Darren Moore, and he was a disaster again. But I think his philosophy of trying to get the ball into the opposite half and playing with the ball there, I do prefer, because I think when we had Graham Jones and Darren Moore, he was playing the back three, but play out the back and keep the ball, and we didn't have the players to do it. So I think it will work. I just hope the fans don't turn if it don't work the first season and don't go up, because he's here for 4 years. So it's a gamble, but I hope it pays off. It's different, so it's nice.
Yeah, I think a lot of Albion fans can echo what you're saying. We look at the 4-year deal and we think, wow, he's here for that 4 years or as close as, and probably till somebody poaches him if we do quite well. But the thing is, when we get into the Premier League, is his football sustainable enough? Are we going to have that? We're going to have a bad run of results at some point.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're not quite bad as, the board's not quite as bad as somebody like Watford, who like to check the manager out the door every 5 minutes. But we are running out of those managers to pick from, I think, really, those ones that are going to come and save us. I think we've cut our ties with most of them already. So, yeah, it's whether his football's going to be sustainable and whether we're going to be able to hold on and keep going if we're going to have a bad run of results. But obviously, going into the Luton game, which is what we're here for the match reaction. We obviously started the Championship season reasonably well with a 2-2 draw with Bournemouth, which most would see as a decent result, because obviously they're going to be probably up there in terms of the final league position. What were your thoughts going into the Luton game? Obviously, lineups. What would you have gone for before the game?
I think what I would have. Johnston is available, so I think 100% change it. I think Button, he hasn't done much wrong, but I think just the quality that Johnston brings us, it's different. As we saw last year, he coming from the Championship. I know fans got on it. He did get on his back, but I think he's more adaptable to the Premier League, because I think he reminds me of Foster in terms of his shot stopping and his awareness, but when it comes to his physicality, I think we can all agree he's not up there in terms of being the most physical goalkeeper. Yeah. Which I think he struggled with in the Championship. But I'm hoping this time around he seems to have bulked up a bit. So I'm hoping now his physicality will have a bit more. I think Clark, I didn't know much about him, if I'm being honest. Yeah. But Derby fans raved about him, saying he was quality, he'd done well. So, and I think he seems left-footed to me. So I think having a left-footed does help. Again, Bartley, nothing wrong with him. O'Shea, I think he was one of the best players at Bournemouth, so kept his place. Townsend, Furlong, I agree with, because we don't have anyone else. You can say Reach, but he weren't match fit. Morat and Livermore, and then the front three. I think the front three explains itself. Maybe Matt Phillips, but I think he was self-isolating? So there was a reason.
That Bournemouth game, I think. Well, it was just before the Bournemouth game. He'd been isolating, and then he just about managed to come out for the Bournemouth game and managed to get on the bench. So not quite fit enough for anything.
I think the team on paper explains itself. I think there's obviously a couple of additions, but in regards to Luton, I've got to be, again, I'm honest. I didn't know much. I know that people have said stuff like they've recruited really well and they've improved massively over the summer. I know they've obviously got like Lansbury, and again, Lansbury's the only one I really know. I know they've got that winger, one that played on Onyedema.
Yeah, the one who he used to play for like Millwall, didn't he, at some point?
Yeah, was he a Wick? I think this might have been a Wickham last. I can't remember, but I think I'm not trying to say this as an Albion fan coming down like, oh, we're the big dog sort of thing. But if I'm being honest, I don't know much about him. I know Nathan Jones, obviously, he was all right though, so he's put together a solid side, but it's hard. I think on paper, the team we put out yesterday is probably the best team that we have at the moment. But I think the worrying thing is Ismail's come out last week and saying he's happy with the squad, which is I can't agree with that.
I hope that's a smoke screen, to be honest. I really hope he's just saying that just to say, in case all the players in the side are thinking, oh, well, we're safe. We can just have a little rest because we got more additions coming in. Maybe that's hopefully, I hope that's a ploy to just say you're the ones who are going to be playing this season, so you need to work really hard, rather than don't worry, we're going to have additions coming in, so maybe you get more rest, you get more quality coming in, so maybe you don't have to work that hard. So I hope that's a smoke screen for transfer activity, because obviously, actually, we'll ask you about that now, Callum. Who would you bring in? What sort of positions would you say that you'd like us to improve on it if we are to dip back into the transfer market this summer?
I think the main one's a striker, because as you seen yesterday, you brought off Grant and Robinson, and then I think that's where the big capitulated, because the movement was gone. Zahor offered nothing. Phillips, I think I felt sorry for Phillips because I feel like he was trying, but it was missing that link, and Dean Garner was obviously on the other side of the three, so he couldn't really do much. I think maybe a right wing back purely for cover, because Furlong went down, and I was a bit like, well, who's going to come on, because we don't have a wing back. We've got Reach, but again, he's not played the game. He's more left-sided. And then I think Sawyer's went on the bench, so maybe the rumours to Stoke could be true. He could be off to Stoke. I'm not sure. I haven't heard much recently, but so I think 2 new centre mids. I think Livermore needs to replace him, because I think it's not the player he was. I think Moat's a really good addition, especially for free. He's unreal for a free transfer.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think 4 more additions, 2 centre mids, a right wing back and a striker, and then some people there. But I'm actually surprised that we've not used more loans, because predominantly before we've loved loan signings, especially last time in the Championship. Whereas now we've got one in Clark, and I know he's trying to say that we want to buy players and have a squad, but I feel like if there's players there to be loaned, I think we should use it 100%. I'll be happy for it, and it worked out.
Yeah, it's very un-Albion like not to be using these loans, because obviously if we remember back to the Championship season, obviously you mentioned it earlier under Darren Moore, where we ended up with about probably upwards of 6 or 7 loan players. With you had Gay, you had Johansson at one point, you had Montero, you had Holgate, Adarabioyo as well. There was quite a few in there, and Murphy as well. Yeah, so it's very un-Albion not to be using the loans. I think Ismail potentially has taken a bit of Barnsley's recruitment with him. Perhaps I'd rather scout somebody younger and find them and bring them in myself and adapt them, rather than developing somebody else's player. Perhaps that's his thinking. Obviously, he's brought Clark in, which is a really solid addition, I think, especially what we saw yesterday. But in terms of the Luton game, Callum, what were your overall takeaways from the game? What did you make of the way that the game played out, and why it did in that way?
I think first half it was fantastic. I can't recall having Luton having a shot. First half they didn't have a shot first half. They didn't. I don't think they created anything. I think we were solid. I think the doubts of a back three were swept away rather quickly, because I think everyone was quite comfortable. We looked in control. I wouldn't say we was creating clear-cut chances, but I feel like we was creating chances to get the goals, and we obviously got the 2 we did. And then Grant had the other one when he come inside and tried squaring into Robinson rather than hitting it, but it could be down to lack of confidence. But I think second half we come out first, there was only 2 or 3 minutes, and we still looked up. We were still pressing high and winning the ball back. And then when that Clark went down, I think that 15-minute break didn't help us at all.
Yeah.
I think, that even towards the end, it was getting cones down and trying to warm back up, because I feel like we just lost it. It was correct me if I'm wrong, it was 2-0 at the time when that happened. Yeah, it's 2-0 at the time. So it's not a game's done, but we're in control. We definitely took the foot off the pedal. It was weird, because as soon as it came off, it was just we scored the third and we still looked in control. And then I don't know. I don't know if we got too comfortable. I don't know if it was the changes. I really don't know, because even the Luton goal, when it come back to Townsend, and he seemed to have ages of time on the ball just to get rid of it. Or someone peeled out to the wing, just a little clip, and that's all he had to do. And then as soon as that ball gave away, it's capitulated. We just didn't create anything, like statistically, like second half. We just didn't create anything. Luton had, from what I looked, 3 big chances. They missed 1 big chance and scored the other 2. They had 7 shots inside the box, 3 outside the box, and their keeper didn't have to make a save second half. Obviously, Brandt scored the 1, but apart from that, I don't really remember us creating anything in the second half. Like possession, I know Ismail when he come in, he said possession. It's not going to. I don't think we'll be up there for possession. I think I'm not sure what it was like at Barnsley, but I don't know if they had loads of possession last season when he was there. But his philosophy of getting the ball into their half and creating chances, I think you're going to find a lot, especially next week against Sheffield United. We're not going to have the ball much, but it's about creating the chances that we do have when we get the ball. And I want to know you think, because I'm not sure what happened. It was just, I don't know. I can't answer it.
Yeah, well, my sort of theory, obviously, we can try and get inside the players' heads and Ismail's heads for how that game. But I thought the break was. Come to think of it, I think it may have been 3-0 at the break, because I really thought we were properly about to batter Luton. I thought we were going to go and get another couple, really. And then I think we had that break, and obviously Valerian Ismail's system needs you to be pretty alert, pretty on it. It's not something you can really ease into. It's not something you can have a little jog and then, wow, we're back, bam, into a sprint. I think that didn't help. The break didn't help. I think, obviously, you mentioned the cones. I saw the cones go out and we were doing little side steps around the cones. So, yeah, obviously trying to keep warm is probably the problem there with that big break. But I thought the substitutions, I thought they were pretty they really did affect the game. I thought Phillips, I think he does look a lot fitter, and I think he looks quite nice when he's tracking back, but I don't think he's quite got the high press bit of it. I think he's got the work ethic, and I think he's starting to implement that sort of thing into his game, and he's doing a lot of tracking back. Obviously, you saw him in like left back areas, trying to win the ball back, trying to get the ball off the opposition and preventing corners and stuff like that. But Zohore, obviously, he came on, and I don't think I've seen as bad of a substitute performance in quite a few years, really, from Zohore. The ball was just bouncing off him. The ball was being won in the air by centre-backs that are, relatively smaller than him, really, in terms of stature and his broadness as well, Zohore. And I think that taking off Robinson and Grant, who I consider to be probably the most effective in the high press, especially Robinson, I think their pressing is quite infectious throughout the team. I think when they're getting towards the back line, I think it really does instigate the rest of the reaction from the team. But when you've got Zohore up top, obviously he's not doing particularly any pressing. So we don't need to step up now. How are we going to step up if nobody's pressing up front? And the same with Phillips. Obviously, I do understand that he is working quite hard, and I do recognise that. But it's just that infection from Robinson and Grant. When they press, everybody else does. But when Zohore is lumbering about and he's sort of just watching them play out from the back, it's not particular. Well, it is infectious, because obviously they're like, we can't press if Zohore's not pressing up top. So it starts at the front. I don't know what you think about that, but that was sort of my theory.
I think the problem is with Zohore, as I think you can agree, as Albion fans, we've had players who aren't the best. I think someone like Shane Long, he wasn't technically the best. He wasn't ability-wise the best, but I think the way that he ran around for 90 minutes and hassling defenders and winning the ball and pressing, if Zohore done that, I think Albion fans would be more acceptable to him to being a squad player. I think yesterday it was just, I was sitting in the Birmingham Road where he was attacking, and he was just playing the ball around the back, and it was like the fans were going mad at him, like, run, do something, he's standing there. And there was one when the ball came around the back, and he was like running. And it was like watching me trying to run after the ball. It just seemed so uncoordinated, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know, but the problem is, who wants him? Because he went to Millwall last season, he didn't say a lot, he didn't do much, he was there. I don't think he even played much. No. I think Phillips, like I said earlier, I felt sorry for him, because I think at one point Livermore and Phillips are going mad as a whole, because I think Luton had a throw-in towards their half, and it was going mad at him, saying, like, cut it out, what are you standing there for? Like, I think he was trying to do 2 jobs, and even trying to do a third job of trying to help Townsend out, because especially when Lansbury come on in the second half, they seem to have an extra midfielder, man, because I think with the 3-4-3, you've got 2 midfielders, but they seem to chuck a third on there to try and overload it. And I feel like Townsend was getting like 3v1, 3v2. So I think Phillips, I understand why he come back and helped out. But I feel like that's what I mean. Like we accept it because it's like you've come back and you've helped the team out. So I don't mind it. The whole, he didn't win the ball. He took touches that were going back to their attackers. And he done one, he was like the 105th minute. And there was like a minute left. He had to hold the ball up and he tried to flick. And he gave it straight to the defender. No, what are you doing? It's like, look, there's 1 minute to go. We need to hold the ball up and you trying little flicks. And I don't know. I really do not have an answer for what that display was, but I think it's the worst display I've ever seen from an Albion player.
Yeah, I think coming on, especially at that stage in the game when you need, I can understand Ismail bringing him on because in terms of what he's done in pre-season, obviously, I don't know if you saw what he did in the Birmingham game that was completely unzahor.
Yeah.
And like, there's no reason why Valérien Ismail, from what he's seen of Zahor at the club since he's been here, to say no, he's not good, he shouldn't come on. Like in stature, he looks a big, strong, fast target man. Yeah. But when he got on the pitch, it was just like, I can understand why he brought him on. I thought maybe he's just going to do that in Ichibi thing that he used to do.
Yeah, definitely.
He used to come on for 5 minutes, hold the ball up, win some fouls at the pitch. Even Kanu, to an extent, used to do stuff like that. But Zahor, he just came on, and it was like, it was half a yard off every single ball, not just one or two, and it took him a bit of time to get it. It was every single one. It was... I'm quite shocked because I thought, wow, we're going to see something new from Kenneth Zahor this season. Are we going to see the £8 million finally being repaid? Maybe he's going to play a decent role coming off the bench or maybe even start in some games. But I think he's really done himself some damage with that performance for Ismail, because I know it wasn't necessarily the fault of the 2 goals going in and making things nervy, because obviously that came more from the back and the self-destruct. Yeah. But certainly in terms of working hard, I think that's the bare minimum in this system. And I think, obviously, he may not have the quality. And certainly we've seen in front of goal, he definitely doesn't have that sort of quality. But at least expect a bit of hard work. But, Callum, in terms of the 2 goals conceded, and obviously it was a bit of a change in the back line that sort of instigated this. What did you think about the 2 goals that we conceded, and obviously the changes in the back line throughout the game that made, well, the one change in the back line that sort of instigated the reaction of the goals?
I think the first thing I found out was, looking back at the game, I think Ismail shouldn't have made both the subs. I think, as I said earlier, you have Dean Garner, Grant and Robinson as the pressers. Like you said, when they press, that instigates the rest of the team to come up the pitch and press with them. So I think maybe if he was to put one on, just put Phillips on and then add Zahor into it and add someone else into it, because I think we're only 2 games in and it's still new, because we've come from Allardyce and you could maybe even say Bilic, from where you're trying to sit behind the ball in the Premier League and trying to pick your moments, trying to counter. Yeah. So now you're trying to press 20 yards up the pitch further than what they used to, and it's new. So I know at Barnsley, he used to do a thing. I read something where he would bring 3 attackers off and bring 3 new strikers on.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have that at the Albion, because he's got Zahor, who's a waste of time, in my opinion. Especially after in the week when Ismail said Zahor.
Yeah.
I can't believe he said in the week that he's like a new player. He's hungry, and he come on the pitch, and I think first 25 seconds, you think he'd done something, and I was like, this could be new Kenneth Zahor. This could be a season. And then the next 25 minutes, 30 minutes, it was awful. And then went 3-0 up, and the first goal, I remember Livermore won it back and he played it back to Townsend. Yeah. And I think this could be the difference between Townsend and maybe someone like Gibbs, because Townsend, I thought last year was fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think if that was Gibbs, when he's setting back, he would have played it out one touch or maybe just clipped it out and get everyone up the pitch. There's Townsend, he just took one touch and then you just seemed to dally on the ball. He was just like playing FIFA. He was just holding on to it. And it's like, what are you doing? And then obviously the deflection could have went anywhere, and he goes straight to their strike and he scores. And then I think it's funny because I feel like even though he was under pressure, we still looked a bit comfortable. Even at 3-1, I think as time was going on, we still looked comfortable. And then when that second goal, because I know Bartley headed it, but he headed it backwards into the centre of the goal.
Mm.
So I think that could either be miscommunication of him and Johnston. Johnston not saying he's coming out and Bartley trying to head it back, thinking he'll catch it. But I think this happened last time on Championship. We can see goals that are so unnecessarily, ridiculously inept from our defending. It's ridiculous. I feel like I think against Luton we should have had the clean sheet, and I think we'd have looked a lot stronger going into the Sheffield United game. I think even the Bournemouth, the goals we conceded, they weren't fantastic goals. I don't think they weren't well worked goals. It was just poor defending. I think if we cut that out and we can try and maybe add one or two new, I don't know, maybe 3 players in minimum, I think we should be all around up there towards top 2 towards the end of the season. I don't get ahead of myself, but I think Ismail is. I think he's the one that could hopefully change things around now, because we've been in a constant cycle of learning players like Barnes and players like who've gone back and our seasons fell apart. Whereas now I understand what they're trying to do by signing players, and that's why we've only got one loan. But I think over the course of the season, I heard it on BBC WM yesterday, if you're going to play it Ismail way, you have to have a squad. You have to have a big squad.
Yeah. I saw something about this. I saw, I think it was one of the reporters on Twitter, and they said that they can see a lot of Marcelo Bielsa in Valerian Ismail, because he seems to like a quite small squad, so he knows where every single player's at. He knows their progress. He knows how fit they are. He knows how much they can rely on. Rather than having, I'll go back to the Darren Moore season where we honestly must have had about 35 players in the squad. And there was times where you'd have a player start one week. So like, just for example, Tyrone Mears, that's a proper blast.
Wow.
But he was starting one week, and then the next week he wouldn't be in the squad. And then the next week he'd start again. It was just really random, like tinkering about. But I think
I actually saw that on Twitter. I think it was Alan Nixon. I think it is.
That's
I saw that. I actually replied to that tweet. I said, I agree with what you're saying, but there's a difference between having a small squad and being stupid.
Yeah.
I think with Leeds that they had the small squad, but they sort of had the quality to do that. Yeah. I know they had a couple of young lads, but the young lads weren't bad footballers. Whereas I think with us, when the Bournemouth we had 6 subs.
Yeah, I was worried.
I think there's a difference between having a small squad and being clever with it and being stupidity. Because if you go out and Livermore get injured, who do you play?
It's going to have to be somebody like, my thinking is Kevin Castro, but is he ready to play Championship football? Obviously, heard a lot of good things about him in the Watford game. I think it was the friendly. I heard some good things about him then, but he's not been in the squad when he's fit. Obviously, over the last game against Luton. So, yeah, I'm just a bit concerned, because obviously maybe Phillips could go in there, maybe Reach could go in there, but they're not really up to the quality of somebody like, well, particularly Moat, who's in there and doing a really good job. So Moat gets suspended, which I think he's going to be. He's got 2 yellow cards in 2 games. It's coming in the next. It's in the next 10 games. He's going to have a ban. Let's face it. Obviously, he's playing in 2 in midfield, high intensity. Going to have to work really hard. And same with Livermore. Livermore. It wouldn't be a Livermore season without a ban, I don't think. So there's going to be bans. There's going to be injuries. Obviously, it's a high press system, so it's going to be pretty taxing on the players for their fitness and their obviously getting injuries. So, Callum, if you're the chief of scouting at the Hawthorns, what sort of personnel are you bringing in? Obviously, we've been linked with some quite nice striker options. I'm personally thinking in Dyke and Delap from Man City, who I think looks pretty bright. What sort of personnel are you bringing into the Hawthorns this summer?
Well, Robson Carney's on a free, so you might as well get him back if that's the whole. I don't know. I think, judging from what Ismail done last year, he wants a striker up there that is a target man, I'd say, but has a mobility about him. I think that's why I'm not sure if Dykes just paper rumours have had him 2 and 2 together because he was the manager last season and bringing him back. I hope it's not. I hope there is some interest there. I know Massey reported it with Liam Delap, but I've not seen anything of him. I know he scored a goal for Man City playing from the other day. When the other day was it? I know he played a cup game, I think it was.
He played the cup game against Bournemouth, funnily enough, last season in the Carabao Cup, I think.
Yeah.
Pep Guardiola gives him his debut, and he went through on goal and he smashed it in. So
Yeah, that was it. But
that's a very small amount of evidence to cite.
yeah, I think Dyke last year it was something like 9 goals and 11 starts. So I think, but you putting all your eggs in one basket. I think I'm not sure because our scouting, I think maybe apart from Pereira, we're not finding the gems that we used to. We used to find unbelievable players like McCauley, Malumbu, Jakob.
Yeah.
I feel like since Ashworth left and everyone else, it's just. I mean, we've signed Kenneth Hall for £8 million.
Yeah, I mean that's just.
That sums up how.
Especially after yesterday, I think a lot of Albion fans are looking back at that and thinking, can we have that 8 million back now? Because obviously we've been waiting to see a decent striker, and he didn't have too many chances under Bilic. I don't think he had masses, but just yesterday, I just think, wow.
I think it's hard because I feel if Austin didn't have the money that he was on, I would have kept him. If it was what Robson Kanu was on, I might have given him another year because at this level he can score the goals he knows it's about. He's doing it at QPR, doing it last year. But I'm not sure because top of my head I can't think of any. I know people want Clark Harris from Peterborough, but he's had 2 games. He's not done much.
Yeah.
He's not. I know he's in his prime, but if he was like 21, 22, young player coming up, then yeah, spending the money and getting. But I think if they want reportedly £8 million, that's all of the Pereira money gone for this year.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I feel like everyone's in the same boat trying to find a striker, but it's just Fulham have got one in Mitrovic, they're all right, but it's tough. It really is tough, and to some extent, I feel sorry for them because of COVID. There's not much options, but that's when the recruitment has to come in. You have to look overseas, the clubs that are struggling more than us, just to try and get some financial deal going.
Yeah, I think I've said this so many times on the podcast, but I'd just love us to look at somebody like, 2 clubs in particular, Norwich and Brentford, who I think smash it year after year with their scouting. Yes, the players they bring in, they're not first teamers straight away. They have a season maybe back on loan, or they have a season in what they call a B team now, and then they come into the first team. And obviously, you look at that Brentford side that played the other day against Arsenal, and you think, who are these lot? You know, who on earth are these players? And I just think the players that they find are fantastic. Obviously, I know that Brentford have got an affiliation with a club in Denmark that works pretty well between the two, where they get their players from. But my choice in terms of striker, I think would be Dyke. I think in terms of what I've seen, I mean, this is literally a 10-minute reel on YouTube of his time at Barnsley, but he has similar, be it obviously less quality. He looks a bit like the way that Lukaku used to play, where he used to just, the ball would come into the box and you just think, you shouldn't win that. You shouldn't be getting your head on that. And he just absolutely pommel through 2 defenders and it's in the back of the net. There was a couple of times where I saw that, and then there's a few times where I'm seeing him press high and then he picks up the ball. He's having a run at defenders. Yes, he's not the quickest because obviously he's a big guy, but obviously he's having runs at defenders. He is reasonably quick, but not obviously lightning fast. But I think Johnson Clark-Harris was a player that intrigued me at the start of the window. I did a video a few weeks ago on, which striker should we sign, and I probably said Johnson Clark-Harris at the time. Now I look and I see him in the Championship. I think I watched the Peterborough Derby game as much as I could before we went to the game, but he just looks a little bit lost, perhaps. I think a lot of Albion fans have gone from him being first choice to him perhaps not even being on the shortlist now. But obviously we'll see what happens in the transfer window. We're hoping that this isn't the end of our business, because I think that would be, as you said, pretty stupid of Ismail to leave that. Obviously, I was just thinking when he said it, I thought, surely you're just saying that just to motivate the players a bit more. I really hope so. Yeah. So, Callum, have you got a man of the match for yesterday's game? Have you got a standout performer? Obviously, things were going well, but obviously we did try and trick it away. But there were some decent performances. Who would you say was your man of the match from an Albion perspective, of course?
I'd probably say Dara O'Shea. I think he was absolutely unreal. I think that right side looked so solid. There was nothing going down there. I think the other side, when Clark went off and Jay come on Townsend, it looked like it was like having Darren Moore football back, and it looked open, and it was like having Adebayo back at the back. Yeah, it was a chance he's going through there. I think I looked earlier at the attack reports, and Luton, literally every attack they had near enough went down the right hand side from Townsend.
Yeah.
So I think that other side it shored it up, and I think O'Shea. I think this could be the season that properly brings him through as a whole season, a 46 game player. I think he struggled last year in the Premier League because in the Championship he come through, was it like February time, like January, February time, and Ferguson was leaving. He was reported leaving, so we dropped him, brought O'Shea in. He had a run of games when he done well, but I think he got chucked into the Premier League too early. I think you could see he weren't ready. But I think this season he seems to have matured a bit. So I think this season could be his actual breakthrough season, and it wouldn't surprise me in 3-4 years' time if he was the new captain. It could be like it.
Yeah, I think obviously we didn't really see much of him in terms of in the stadium, did we? I think he played that game against Brentford where we had no centre backs left on the bench under Bilic, and he was the only one left. And we thought, oh God, this is not the time to come on, because obviously Brentford were promotion chasers along with ourselves, and we thought, oh God. But he did look really assured in that game. But we haven't really seen him in terms of in the stadium, have we? Because obviously when he started to break through, he got into the first team, and then we went into lockdown. We didn't see him in the stadium. So. But he looks really physical, I think. I think in terms of a player that I think a few times got pinned by opposition strikers in the Premier League, I think looks really physical. Like you saw yesterday, there was quite a physical striker in terms of Adebayo yesterday up front for Luton. He was quite strong. Obviously, Bartley dealt with him well, but then he started to try and peel off onto the other two centre-backs to see if he could have a go at them. But I thought O'Shea, oh God, I hope he doesn't start peeling off onto him, because maybe they'll get involved in a physical battle. And I don't think O'Shea is particularly strong, but he looked really, really calm, assured on the ball. And definitely calm when dealing with what is a good Championship striker. I'm definitely with you on this. I think this could be his season to really shine through. And if we do go up, this season is going to really help with a really good big run of games. Obviously, Ismail spoke very highly of him, so hopefully we see him breaking in and carrying on his really good form.
I think as well, what impressed me was his reading of the game. I think there was times when he looked as if the ball was going over Bartley, and he automatically covered round behind him just in case it didn't. And I think there was a couple of times when Luton broke away, and there was the one when it was like a 3-on-1, and he managed to slow down the winger.
Yeah.
Let me get his name. I think is that on your dame. I have to say his name again. I think he was breaking away, and it was like a 3-on-1. He managed to slow it down and just get all the players back in time. And I think this could be that. I really hope this is the season. I'm not sure. Knowing now, look, his contract probably expires at the end of the season, but and he'll probably leave on a free. But I'm sort of hoping he'll be the next one to break through and maybe make a decent profit on him from an academy player, because I think our problem is we hold on to players for far too long. We don't sell them when they're at the potential. So I know he's only young, so if he has a good year, especially in the Premier League, if we do go up and he has a strong year next year as well, I'm hoping we can make some decent money from him.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's surely got to be Premier League teams, if he carries on like this, looking at him. So I don't want to sell him, because I think it's nice to have an academy player. I know he's not necessarily Hawthorns, he's obviously Irish, so he's not necessarily bred next door to he's not necessarily born next door to the Hawthorns, but he just looks like the part at centre back, and I'm really looking forward to what the season holds ahead. But Callum, obviously you said at the start of the podcast you hadn't seen too much of Luton before. But you obviously had 106 minutes or whatever it was of watching the net today. What did you make of the Luton side and how they played up against Albion? Do you think they're going to be, have a decent season?
Well, from what I was watching, I watched a YouTube video earlier of a Luton fan actually talking about the way they got on. I know there's missing some players like Sonny Bradley. There's missing another centre half as well. So I think they didn't come with a full squad. I think first half they didn't do anything. I think they just came to try and maybe hold us out for a draw. But I feel like when they actually got the ball down and started playing, and they brought the likes of Lansbury on and started pinging it, they're actually not a bad team.
Yeah.
And I think even like bringing someone like Cameron Jerome off the bench, I know he's 35, but I think he causes some problems last 20 minutes he was on. Like done more than Kenny Sahor. We weren't hard, but I think like they won the first game 3-0 against Peterborough, but that's the sort of games you have to make a statement. I don't think they'll be up there in terms of going automatics. They might push for Paris because I don't think this season the teams are strong. I'm not sure what you think, but I don't like. I feel like when you come down, there's in the old times, especially, you'd come down and there was 5 or 6 teams just as good as you. Whereas I think now with COVID and the parachute payments, I think us, Fulham, Sheffield United have a ridiculous squad compared to.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd probably say Luton, but even like yesterday, like they've got like a 2 average goal expectancy, so it shows when they get the ball down and they play that they can be up there. I think, like I said, they missed a few players, but I think Nathan Jones, he had a bad time at Stoke, but I think he sort of knows what he's doing. If he can just get maybe 1 or 2 more signings in, I don't see why they can't be up there.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've got a nice way of playing, especially in that last 20 minutes when they really made things difficult. They sort of completely switched their game off from the first half that they had and just went, right, let's actually knock the ball about. And they did look decent. But we'll go over and get some reaction from the Luton camp. We've got Billy Mully, who's from the Oak Road Hatter podcast, who sent us a little 5-minute clip with his thoughts on the game. So let's go over to Billy and see what he says. Obviously, if you want to check out the Oak Road Hatter podcast, the links will be in the description. But let's go over to him and get his thoughts.
After such an emphatic win on the opening day against Peterborough, and it's a really exciting time to be a Luton Town fan. The belief that Nathan Jones has instilled into the players and therefore us as fans has been there right from pre-season. I think that the people that have jumped on the bandwagon that we are dark horses, I don't think we're there yet, but we're closing in on that sort of category of team. I knew West Brom would be a difficult test. I mean, the players that the club possess is nothing short of incredible. The recruitment has also been brilliant. The likes of Alex Mowatt and Matt Clark are great players at this level, and I think you'll continue to see the best out of them during this season. Ishmael as well is a serial winner. He basically took Barnsley from a struggling championship side to a playoff competing team, so it's a big work in progress at West Brom, but the signs are there to say that they're going to be right up there at the end of the season. There was no changes from Saturday's win, and whilst it's exciting to see such an attacking starting 11, it was a bit too attack-minded for visiting a team like West Brom. We started with our 4th and 5th choice centre-backs, and the 3 that usually start ahead of them are still recovering from COVID and recovering from respective injuries, which is not ideal for visiting a team like West Brom, as I say, but it was the position we had to be in, and I think that showed quite early on. We tend to match teams up as well when we've played sort of the bigger teams in the division in the past, but I think there's this sort of new mindset that we go out and do what we do, and we'll see how that goes on rather than worrying as much about what the opposition do. At the same time, it would have been difficult for us to actually name 5 at the back, given the 3 players that were missing, plus the other 2 players that could actually fill in that position are also injured. So it was quite a difficult team sheet for Nathan Jones to get right, especially when considering the opposition. I think we were left quite stunned by West Brom, to be honest, how fast they came out and how strong they started. I think my best assessment is that West Brom won the physical battle quite early on, and then that allowed them really to get a foothold in the game, control possession, and start attacking moves from deeper and sort of penetrate through our defence quite quickly. But I don't think it was pure domination in the sense that it was one-way traffic. I think we put some nice moves together, but the end product sort of let us down on a few occasions. Also think we were let back into the game quite sloppily from West Brom's perspective, with Harry Cornick allowed to sort of tap the ball in, and this was sort of the moral of the story for the second goal as well. We were allowed back into the game rather than sort of earning the chance to get back into the game. I think once West Brom fully click into gear this season, then they're going to be some force to stop. Once they eradicate sort of the silly mistakes that they made too, I think it could have been even 4 or 5, but I was left impressed with how we responded in the second half, but the manner we conceded the 3 goals needs to be eliminated before we go into our next game with Barnsley. I was left impressed with Alan Campbell. He worked tirelessly in the middle of midfield and showed some real quality when getting forward and supporting the play, whilst also having that sort of technical ability to progress attacking moves further. I think the experienced duo of Cameron Jerome and Henry Lansbury also worked very well and changed the game in that sense, in the way that Lansbury kept the ball ticking, and his quality from set pieces was also something we're missing during the game. Jerome was a real nuisance up top, and I think his experience really showed. We had Adebayo who started, who was unable to get in the game, and then Jerome came on and sort of showed Adebayo how to do it, I felt. First time that Adebayo actually struggled from what I've seen. Matt Clark, I thought, was excellent. He's such an intelligent footballer who reads the game very, very well. He's technically brilliant. He's got composure, and he also has that tendency to bring the ball forward and join the attacks when needed, which is good when you have two other centre-backs next to you. I thought the front three was also brilliant. I think that they will enjoy a very, very prolific season, all three of them. Also, when you have a player like Matt Phillips to bring on in that position, in any of those positions really, across the front three, then yeah, it's going to be some season for West Brom. Also thought Furlong had a brilliant game. His attacking runs down the right flank were never really picked up, and he really provided a threat with some of the balls he put into the box. Also, also defensively speaking, he cut off the threat of Onyedinma, who had such an excellent game for us on the opening day, and he is also another player that will keep on improving this year, I imagine. The good thing for us is that we won't have to play West Brom every week, but there are a few things that we need to do better for the rest of this championship season, and ultimately that is defending set pieces and crosses a lot better. We also just had a single shot at half time, which is something we struggled with last season, but at the same time, when you come to West Brom away, you don't tend to expect too many.
So a massive thank you to Bill for coming on the podcast and giving his thoughts on the Albion-Luton game. But after that 3-2 win, a nice 4 points leaves us on with the total for the season so far after 2 games. We're now moving on to a Wednesday night kickoff, a game against Sheffield United, back at the Hawthorns again, under the floodlights. Going to be a lovely game. We'll talk about it now with Callum here. So, Callum, confidence should really be brimming, especially in an attacking sense after the performance yesterday. What are your thoughts going into the Sheffield United game? Obviously, coming down with us from the Premier League, you mentioned them earlier with how strong of a squad they've got. What are your thoughts going into the game?
I'm quite shocked after 2 games. They've only got 1 point. I think after the way we beat Blues 4-0 in pre-season, I thought Sheffield United, they got Jokovic, who it's a bit different from Wilder, I'd say, because from Wilder there was organised and it was just try to make it as hard for teams as possible. To Jokovic, where he's just possession-based, try and control the game. And I think against Blues, that's something like 76% possession. It was absolutely ridiculous. But they're not creating much. I think this is the problem. I think we've had this problem before when maybe on the beach we've had possession. We've had like 75% possession, maybe against Wigan or someone, and we couldn't create anything. And they've gone on the other end and scored, which is evidently what Blues done as well. In against Swansea, it was a 0-0. It was just 2 teams battling for possession. I don't think there was much created. But, you know, at the time, they've still got Sanderberg. They've still got maybe even McGoldrick. You know, whenever he plays against us, he seems to turn into prime Ronaldo. You've got even Brewster, he scored goals at Swansea. I'm not sure if McBurney's fit. I'm not sure what situation he was with him.
Yeah, well, he played against Birmingham. I think he came off. I watched the Birmingham game, but I didn't watch the game against Swansea last night. So I'm not sure whether he's in the squad, but he's still a decent Championship squad.
Yeah, exactly.
Scored goals against.
When you go for the team, obviously, like Ramsdale, but linked with Arsenal, Johnny Egan, like on paper they've got a good squad. So I don't think we should take it lightly just because they've not won a game. If anything, we should be more aware because they haven't won a game yet, and it's like a statement. But do you know why? This is a worry of mine, which is I think this will be our first proper test in terms of if they do play someone like Ollie Burke, who, as we know, he's got pure speed.
Yeah,
he's got no football ability. I'm gonna keep touch wood on that because every time I say a slight player, they end up scoring. But against a high line against Ollie Burke, it sounds like a disaster. But it'd be interesting to see what Ismail does. It'd be very interesting. But again, that just because they haven't won a game, I wouldn't write them off. I think they've still got a top side. they'll probably make a signing before the playoffs. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I'm not know. It's been a weird start from this season.
Yeah, I watched the game against Birmingham, and they just looked. They've got on paper, I think, probably as good, if not better, squad than ours in terms of championship quality players. But they just looked like they had no ideas against Birmingham. It was quite odd because I thought Sanderberg played really well. I thought he was just sucking players in. People were coming towards him, and he was just dribbling past them, and he looked really good. But for end product, they looked pretty off the ball, and that's quite odd because they have got some creative players. They haven't got massive amount of flair in their side. I don't think. I think they've obviously got Burke, who the less said about from an Albion's perspective, the better. Obviously, we're hoping because he did really play well. I think last season in the first game, I think we played against them that we won at home. I think he looked like twice the player that we've ever seen him. It must have been the motivation of playing against us, I think, really, because I'm sure he knows what a lot of the fans think about him. But they just looked stuck for ideas. I can't comment on the Swansea game, but in the Birmingham game, they lost. They just looked. They had so much possession, but they just didn't get any end product. Didn't get any of the cogs turning in an attacking sense. It was quite odd. So. Yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are in terms of how we'll play. Obviously, the high line may be an issue if they opt for pace like they did against Birmingham, which I thought was quite an odd choice because obviously I could have told what are those names, Jukovic. Yeah, I could have told him that if before the game that Birmingham were going to sit really deep and pace would not be effective whatsoever. But he still went for it. I don't know what your thoughts are on how we'll end up playing because the high line may cause problems for ourselves, really.
Maybe, but I think the problem for Sheffield United is, I think if their fans would agree with me, is they've come from a team, like I say, that was well organised under Wilder and that broke quick to now trying to control games and control the ball and stuff. And I think for them, it's a massive change. So like them, they're in a transition, apart from they've gone from a 3-4-5 at the back to a 4 at the back and having an extra player up front, whereas now we've gone from having like a 4-2-3-1 to a 3-4-3.
Yeah.
So I think it's just all about transition. But I know I went on Twitter and a lot of the fans were actually slating Sanderberg after the Swansea game, saying he was poor.
Really? Wow. Yeah, because I looked at him in that Birmingham game and I thought, you need a move, mate. I thought you need to get yourself into the Premier League or something. But yeah, obviously I can't comment on the Swansea game. I think he was I think I saw somebody list a few players that just weren't playing well enough, and I think he may have been one of them, come to think of it. But yeah, it's odd considering I thought he played pretty well in the first game, but obviously Sheffield United just couldn't grab a hold on either of those games at all. It's quite odd. So Callum, if I can push you for a prediction for Wednesday night's game, how do you think we're going to do?
It's going to be a lot of heart attacks, I can tell you that. There's going to be a lot of, as soon as that ball gets played over the top, you see Ollie Bert running behind, everyone's going to sit there, oh my God, what's going to happen? I don't know. I'm gonna 2-0. I think hopefully keep our first clean sheet, get some stability in there. I think the one thing I like about Ismail, he seems to be an attention to detail coach. So I'm pretty sure he'll look at the game and he'll go sit down with the players and sort of urge them to be quicker on the ball, especially at the back. I think that's probably what caused both our goals, as being a bit in their own world. I think we can't do that against Sheffield United, because if we do something like that, we will lose 3 or 4-0. We will get punished if we try defensively trying to do anything stupid. But yeah, I'm a bit confident. I think hopefully, touch wood, Oliver Burke doesn't find his footballing ability. My goals don't turn into prime Ronaldo again. But yeah, hopefully get another win and get some more points on the board and start getting a bit of a gap on.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo your thoughts. I'm not gonna say 2-0. I'll go 1-0 just so we don't have the same prediction. But I just hope that Ismail's not stubborn. He doesn't strike me as stubborn, but he does have his way of playing, and I do hope he can adapt from that in terms of whatever Sheffield play. Obviously, you won't really know what to expect, whether they're going to play pace or whether they're going to go for more creativity. If I was Jukanovic, I think I'd probably go for pace in behind if that's what we're going to do. But hopefully Ismail can kind of counteract that and adapt to however they're going to play. But Callum, it's been a massive pleasure having you on the Baggies podcast this week. Obviously, it's been great to speak to you, and I'm sure a lot of Albion fans have really enjoyed this episode, hearing fans' perspective and obviously speaking to you about your thoughts on the game and obviously your analysis. But Callum, a massive thank you for coming on. Obviously, you're always welcome on the Baggies podcast, but a massive thank you for coming on.
Yes, thanks for having me. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Honestly, no worries, mate. And that does bring us to the end of the Baggies podcast for this match reaction episode. Obviously, the next one will be after the Sheffield United game, where hopefully our points tally will look more like 7 and less like 4 in terms of after Wednesday's game. But if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe. Leave us a nice review if you've enjoyed the episode. And I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.